Hi, this is Miss Hale, and this is your histology notes for anatomy and physiology. We're going to be talking about different tissue types, which is literally what histology is, the study of tissues. Remember, tissues are cells that have a common function, and there's four main types. We have connective, epithelial, muscle, and nervous tissue. So again, a tissue is, and I didn't give you note sheets for this, so make sure you're taking notes on a separate paper. A tissue is a group of similar cells that's specialized for a particular function, and they're classified according to both their function and their structure. And there's some examples over here about what tissues there are. So there's four primary tissue types. The first is epithelial, and epithelial tissue is your covering. Connective functions as support, muscular functions for movement, and nervous tissue functions for control. And an organ is going to be composed of several of these different types of tissues. And the arrangement of the tissues is what's going to determine what the organ does. So for example, the stomach has some loose connective tissue, which has lots of different kinds of cells in there, some smooth muscle tissue, which we'll talk about, nervous tissue that helps control the stomach and how it moves, some epithelial tissue, especially inside in the lining, as a covering of the stomach, and then also it has some blood in there as well. So the first thing we're going to talk about is epithelial tissue. So this is the lining, covering, and glandular tissue of the body. So glands, remember, are organs that can secrete hormones or send messages to other organs in the body. It's the outer layer of your skin is your epithelium, and as well as your body cavities. So things like your esophagus, especially a lot of your digestive system has epithelium in it because it is going to slough off. It contains many cells, and they're very close together. So it's it doesn't have blood vessels throughout it. So what it does is the capillaries underneath the epithelium are going to provide the food and oxygen for the epithelial cells. And so its function is to protect the body. It could protect the organ that it covers or the body in general if you're talking about skin. Absorb. So it could be absorbing nutrients if you're talking about epithelial tissue in the digestive system. It may filter different things into or out of different parts of the body, and it secretes different things. So things are going to come out of the epithelium. So anything that's given off or received by the body has to pass through the epithelium. Epithelium is classified in two ways. The first way is the cell shape. So you can see the examples here. There's squamous, which are flattened cells. This is this top one. Cuboidal, which look cube-shaped, and then columnar, which look like columns. So they're aptly named. Simple epithelium is going to be one layer of cells. So these bottom two, cuboidal and columnar in this picture, are simple. And then stratified is the squamous up here. And there's more than one cell layer when you're talking about stratified epithelium. So the first, here's some different simple epitheliums. We have simple squamous. That's a single layer of flattened cells. That functions for both diffusion and filtration, and it lines the lungs, kidneys, heart, and the blood vessels. Simple cuboidal is a picture here. Is a single layer of cube-shaped cells, and that functions for secretion and absorptions, which covers the ovaries, the kidneys, and the eyes. And then simple columnar, you can see here the columns that go horizontally, and those function in the absorption and secretion of mucus, and they line the digestive tract all the way through. So those are the simple, and then we have stratified, which means there's more than one layer. In stratified squamous, it's a protective tissue, or the outer portion of the skin, and it lines the mouth and the esophagus. And stratified squamous is in places where it's going to slough off or be taken off really easily. And so it's able to be regenerated, and there's always going to be a layer there. So there's the outside layers can be taken off, and there's still going to be more epithelial tissue behind it. Stratified cuboidal is found in the sweat glands, the pharynx, and the epiglottis. And then stratified columnar is going to protect and secrete, and it's found in the urethra, the tube used to pee in the man, and anything that is a large duct that excretes something. So that's epithelial tissue. Connective tissue is the most abundant tissue in the body. There's fewer cells, but they have a richer blood supply, except for the connective tissues of tendons, ligaments, and cartilage. Connective tissue produces what we call an extracellular matrix, which is a non-living substance found outside of the cells, and that allows the connective tissue to bear weight, stretch, and tolerate abrasion or scrapes to it. And that can be soft, like a fat, or hard, like a bone. And so if you look at this picture here, the green is all an extracellular matrix, and the cells are spread pretty far apart. And the function of connective tissue is to protect, support, and bind together, or literally to connect organs. Different types of connective tissue include bone, which is surrounded by very hard extracellular matrix, which protects and supports the body organs. Cartilage, which is less hard, more flexible. It's found in the embryonic skeleton, at the ends of bones, in your nose. It attaches ribs to your sternum, in your ear, and that provides for movement as well as support. And then there's dense connective tissue as well, which forms your tendons and your ligaments, connecting muscle to bone and bone to bone. And this fiber is packed much closer together. There's also loose connective tissue, which I showed you a little bit in the stomach. There's more cells and fewer fibers. So an example of loose connective tissue is adipose tissue, which is your fat. Areolar tissue, which protects the body organs, so it gives it a little bit of cushion, and reticular connective tissue, which is long fibers that are interconnected. That's found in the liver, spleen, and lymph nodes. And then blood is also considered to be a connective tissue. Blood cells and blood plasma transport molecules for the cardiovascular system. The third tissue type is muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is a very highly specialized cell type or tissue type. And there's three types of muscle tissue. There's skeletal muscle, which is usually what we think of when we think of muscles. It's striated, meaning there's stripes on it, and it functions in voluntary movement. So this is a picture of skeletal muscle here. There's also smooth muscle, which does not have striations on it, and that functions in involuntary movements, things like breathing, digestion, giving birth, your reflexes. Those are all smooth muscle, and so there's some found in the stomach here. And then cardiac muscle is found only in the heart. It's also striated, and this is involuntary, so it pumps the heart, and this is an example of cardiac muscle tissue there. The last type is nervous tissue. Neurons are nerve cells, and what they do is they'll receive an impulse from one part of the body and transfer it to another part of the body. So they're literally connecting the different parts. There's three parts to a nerve cell. It has a very specific shape and type. There's dendrites, which are the small offshoots off of the nucleus, and they receive the message up here. Then there's the cell body, which interprets the message, which is here, the nucleus area, and then the axon, which is this whole long part here, which is going to conduct the message or bring it somewhere else. And we'll go more into the nerve cell when we get to the nervous system. And there are 100 billion neurons in the brain alone, so you have tons and tons of nerve cells. And then there's some supporting cells that also go along with the neurons, and they're called neuroglia, and they serve to protect and support the neurons in their role in the body. So when your tissue becomes inflamed and needs to be repaired. It's really an attempt to restore homeostasis. So remember, homeostasis is really going to unify all of our units together. So the damage to your body causes some sort of inflammatory response. So it could be redness, pain, heat, swelling. Think of like having a rash or a burn or something like that. And so there's different chemicals in the body that will initiate this inflammatory response, and they're going to isolate the affected area so that it doesn't go to other parts of your body. And so pus will often be produced, and that can form like a hard abscess in that area. A lot of times in the skin, think of like acne or something like that. And then once the tissue is healed, it's going to be replaced by healthy cells. And so the tissue repair is not complete until all those harmful substances have been removed. And so the vitamins that help with that are A, B, C, D, E, and K. But this requires adequate blood circulation. And since your circulation decreases as you get older, this whole process is going too slow. And so older people tend to take longer to heal than a child or a younger person is going to. So those are your notes for the histology unit, and please write down any questions that you have and bring them into class with you next time. Thanks.